Hello, and welcome to the Where People Meet podcast, the event technology podcast for the worldwide meetings and events industry. I'm your host, Mitch Malinsky, head of sales here at Feedloop in Toronto. And today I'm joined by the one and only Jason Koop, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Canadian Special Events Media Group. Now, I'm really excited for this conversation. Jason brings a raft of experience to the table today. And for a bit of background on Jason, for those who aren't familiar with who he is, let me just give a brief overview of who this man is and why I'm so excited to have him on the podcast today. So before embarking on a career in the meetings and events industry, Jason actually spent 15 years in the apparel industry, managing major accounts for some of the best-known labels. Now, Jason decided he needed a career change and set his sights on the events industry, starting out by writing and creating content for Canadian event professionals. Since then, Jason joined the Canadian Special Events Media Group and helped to build it into the biggest community of corporate event planners in Canada. I myself, I've been privileged to have spoken to Jason many times in the past at their annual CSE Live Event Fest. So I'm thrilled to have yet another opportunity to sit down with him and pick his brain. Now, I'm confident this is going to be an exciting conversation filled with many valuable takeaways. So listen closely and have your pen and paper at the ready. Jason, thank you for joining us today. Where are you calling in from?
Calling in from Winnipeg.
Okay. All right. Very exciting. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and I know many in the audience are really anticipating some of the insights and takeaways that we're going to glean from the conversation with you today. So if you wouldn't mind, it would be great for us to start with you telling the audience a bit about yourself and your background in the meetings and events industry.
Sure. I didn't really make this. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like a lot of people, I didn't plan on being in the event industry. I was in the apparel industry for a long time. I was in the intimate apparel industry for a long time. So,
yeah.
But in 2013, I met Stacy Wyatt, my wife, at an event. I wasn't in the industry. I just happened to be invited there. We started talking. 3 months later, right about that same time, her partner was leaving the company.
Yep.
And she needed some help. And I've always enjoyed writing, so I started writing. I started really getting serious about writing about 5 years ago for CSE.
Okay.
Over the last 3.5 years or so, that's really helped us build the largest community of corporate event planners or professionals, I could say, in Canada. You know, when we were starting to build this community out, we didn't focus on any one category. We didn't focus on planners. We didn't focus on vendors because we focused on everybody in this industry. I think that whether AV tech, a planner, core guy, or I think we're all event because we all share a lot of the shared. We've all shared a lot of the same experience. It comes to producing a lot of the same unique stressors that only event professionals have to deal with. Doors opening at 8 o'clock, whether you're ready or not, that kind of stuff,
Yep.
So I kind of fell into this industry when I fell in love. But it's been good. It's been fun. It's been completely unlike any other industry I've been in. We're a community that's dominated by small businesses and solo entrepreneurs, passionate and creative people. And so you get a real, like I use the word passion probably too much, but you really do. People take this business personally. The intimate apparel business, people like the job, but they didn't learn passion. Like they didn't, if a sale didn't happen, they didn't go home and beat themselves up. People pour their heart into this kind of thing. And
absolutely.
And it's not just that. The other thing about being in this industry that's really unique is everything that we do is in public. everything we do is out there for everybody to see and judge, right? So our failures, our successes, they're all right up there on the surface. And I think that that's one of the really unique pressures that we see in this industry. It leads to a lot of damage.
Absolutely. And that is quite the introduction to the industry itself, going to an event, meeting your soon to be wife, getting involved in a company that, little did you know, was going to grow into the largest community for event professionals in Canada. So it's funny, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, hey, I wasn't planning on joining the events industry, I just got stuck in, I'd be a very wealthy man at this point. But that's quite the introduction. And Jason, we've been talking a lot about CSE and the Canadian Special Events Media Group. I'm guessing there are some people in the audience and some of the listeners who aren't familiar with this organization and what you all do. So do you mind giving us a high-level overview of CSE?
Yeah. We've been around for 26 years. The company was started by Stacey Wyatt and Mark Wyatt. We are a magazine, a website, show, Canadian Event Awards, and soon, very soon, a whole bunch of other things. You know, everybody knows this industry has changed quite a bit in the last few years. Obviously that's affected us pretty dramatically as well. So we really had to go to the drawing board. You know, we were a magazine and a show and the awards for a long time. In a magazine, you know, we were a subscription model magazine for a long time, driving revenues through the show and through advertising the magazine. But 3-4 years ago, we looked around and we realized that having social influence and a social following and awareness was more important than the number of subscribers that we had. And so we kind of took a step back. And that's when we really started to see the growth and create some real awareness, not just in the specific community that we were focused on originally, which was specifically events, but the broader, greater. That's the awareness we've really built over the last few years. And we couldn't have done that with the subscription model. That's only available to creating a community in social media or following and turning into it. When they all showed up at CSE Live.
So, Jason, you've mentioned this a few times, the direction that your team is going in beyond simply a magazine or a media group is that you're trying to build and foster a community of corporate event planners in Canada.
Yep.
Was this always the goal from the beginning for Stacey and Wyatt, or is this just a byproduct, something that happened naturally as the company, as the business has expanded over the years and your audience has grown?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wish some people will say to me, you know, that was really smart of you guys to strategically do this, this, and this. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
We just started writing. I just started writing. And the opportunities that have grown up in this has been entirely. And I think that's one of the reasons why because it wasn't, we didn't have an outreach. We didn't have a specific strategy. We just started writing about stuff that was interesting to us and turned out that it was interesting to our community. So we're almost a company that's going where the opportunity is organically taking.
That's definitely a good way to be led. It's just listening to what the audience is looking for and then building product, services, offerings around that. Definitely a philosophy our team takes here at Feedloop. But go ahead.
I was going to say, and in all honesty, as much as that's influenced who we are today, really going to influence who we are today. Because so many things have changed. Education, just one example, education. You know, there was a time when you needed to physically do that. Well, obviously, that's in the past. And so I think education is going to become more personal. I think masterclass models who has proven their success, has proven their model, I think is invaluable. And so when we talk about opportunities for this company, driven by by the community that we created, well, master classes in education and ongoing professional is one of those key pillars in the new version of this company. You know, we'll probably be in place to launch from September.
That's a very exciting project that your team will be working on. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that. I'm very curious to learn more about this concept of a community and how you can build a viable business model around it. Like, what are the different revenue streams that you're able to derive from this concept of a community? Like, how have you turned this into an actual viable money earning business model?
I think that once you turn anything into you'll share the experience. Especially when you have a community that is unique. Then I think there are opportunities to grow. To the, everything from marketplace to on-demand to opportunities for people to build their to build up and professional relationships. Opportunities for people to create attention to themselves within the community. You know, I think that without getting into the specifics, that would sort of disclose a little bit more information than we want to quite yet. I think that once you turn a following to an active and passionate community, the opportunity to drive revenue is great. You know, associations in this country have to really look at their model of what and decide who they want to be and what kind of value they're offering to their members. And it's not easy because they all have very specific goals or focus, I should say.
Yeah.
What we are looking to do is build a much broader features, benefits, advantages, opportunities than what some of these social. We're going to edit this, right? There's a lot of things. I can't get into it right now because of what's going on that I've already told you about off the record.
Yeah, not a problem.
I think I have to actually leave it at that. Wish I could tell you more, but soon.
Absolutely. That's not an issue. But if I may, I'd like to just recap some of these main revenue streams that you can derive from a community, because I know some of the listeners will be interested in that. So from what I've heard, there is professional development, creating courses, master classes, certificate programs that you can then monetize and sell back to the community. There is the whole media side of things. I know that's primarily how CSE was built, is the magazine. And obviously within that is the opportunity to sell spotlights to organizations and companies who want to get their messaging out to your community. I have a funny feeling that events are also another key component in building communities, monetizing communities. So I'd love to drill down a bit into this. Can you tell us about Canadian Special Events Live, your event fest and award show, how this plays into first building and fostering a community, and then second, the whole monetization side of things?
Yeah, I think that, look, I think you can, an online following is critical. It's important. It's kind of where you start. Creating that online awareness and bringing people together around stories and experiences and stressors and things that are unique to our industry. But until you get them together live, in person, I don't think you really have built a community. Because I don't think you can really build a community until you online. Other people disagree with me. But the difference between building a community online and getting there and building a community in person is their commitment and how activated they are, how engaged they are, how important you are. So, CSE Live is critical because that's where we That's where we touch the audience. That's where we touch them. That's where we physically bring everybody together. I like to say that we built the largest following in Canada over the last 3 years online. And May 1st and 2nd, we turned that following. And now that we have that community, the sky's the limit. But and it's the right community to be building right now. The event industry is growing, not just growing, but sure. Corporations, companies, businesses, PR companies, advertising companies, marketing companies, they're all coming into our industry, into our world right now. They're doing that because look, it's not easy to connect with people.
Yeah.
You want to connect a message to somebody, you got to go through a whole lot of noise to get them. Right?
Exactly.
But if you get them coalesce and get them to come up, you get a chance to shake their hands. Feel some of that energy from that community coming together, that synergy of all of these people like-minded. Well, now you've got something. And that's what we did this year at the show. And that's why, talk about it. But that's why those things are. This year when people talked about their experience at CSE Live, overwhelmingly, the conversation was the fun, the feeling, the noise, the sense of oneness, the sense of community that we have. And it's something when I compare who came to the show in 2020 versus who was there in 2019, it's a dramatic difference. The audience that turned up in 2019 was more senior. The audience that turned up in 2023 was, on average, 7 years younger. First of all, almost 50% of them had been in their jobs for less than 12 months.
Wow.
And you really felt the sense of optimism and excitement. It's not that people weren't excited in 2019, but it's different. A lot of people left the industry over the last few years. And the people who stayed and are still here, I think of the people who are the most passionate, people who are the most positive. The community that showed up this year, this spring, were more enthusiastic for events than that community that was there in 2019. So when I look forward in this industry, the next 3 to 5, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it for a million different reasons, for the advancing technology and the experiences that will provide. We don't talk about digital events very much anymore. We don't talk about digital events anymore because, quite honestly, when the pandemic came, the experiences that were available to us weren't great. They're still not great today, quite honestly. But I think within the next 3 years, maybe 5 years, that digital experience, based on the advancing technology, especially in AR, we're going to transform digital events. And I think in 5 years, digital events will be bigger than live in terms of money spent for a number of reasons. I don't think that's going to take anything away from live events. In all honesty, I kind of see our industry splitting at some point with people specializing in live. But I'm excited about all of it. I'm excited about that first VR experience that really removes that disconnect between you and the environment.
Yeah.
I'm excited about new technologies in live events that will allow us to use AI to create to truly immersive experiences or experiences that we can't even imagine, which open up all sorts of other opportunities for advertising companies trying to create those engagements like one-on-one. Right? So I am excited. I'm excited about the money that's coming into this industry, and I'm excited about the new people because they're excited.
Yeah.
I almost think like the pandemic got rid of some of the people in this industry who weren't and didn't want to be anymore. Now this gave them a reason. Because it's not an industry for everybody. I talked a little bit earlier about that sense of vulnerability in this industry. Well, that vulnerability really mess with people's heads. That's why mental health is always such a big conversation. Because it's not an industry that, again, because everything is so public, everything is so personal.
Yeah, Jason, there was a lot in there. I love that you shared what you're excited about, what's coming up. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity in technology. AI is a big buzzword. Augmented reality. We actually saw that at CSE this year at the Brickworks. I know you had the whole AR room, which was a lot of fun. So it's very exciting to see the direction that the industry is going in and the potential for technology to create new opportunities, new ways to engage and connect that we can't even think of at this time. But one of the items that really stood out to me that you touched on was just the difference in the audience at this event in 2023 versus 2019. And what stood out to me most is that a lot of them are much younger. Now, I've hosted quite a few of these podcasts over the past few years, and during the pandemic, that was a very hot topic, is what is the industry going to do now that a lot of the old guard, now that a lot of the very experienced professionals are leaving the industry, and we're not seeing a lot of young university students or young professionals want to join the events industry. And I think your experience is exactly the opposite. You're seeing a lot of fresh faces. You're seeing a lot of young, excited people joining the industry, bringing their skills, bringing their background in product development, in the digital world. And it's just opening up a raft of opportunities here. So would you agree that the industry is trending in the right direction, that we shouldn't be worried about attracting and retaining young talent, that they're just drawn naturally to the industry? Or is there something that we need to be doing more in terms of paying attention to recruiting and retaining talent in the industry?
It's an interesting question. You know what? It's yes, our industry got a lot younger this year, but it wasn't just that so it wasn't just that the younger people had a different attitude. They do, but the senior people who stayed in this industry,
Right.
they're the ones that did stay. They're also excited. They're also excited and thrilled about where this industry is going in many ways. In terms of attracting people to this business, I don't see that. Look, there's always been a lot of conversation around wages, and because a lot of people didn't plan on being here, a lot of people did university for it, school for it. Now that's changing. Education being on the skills that they're teaching are more important from the other day. And we were reviewing their new curriculum. And I was impressed because there was a lot more emphasis on professional development, a lot more emphasis on skill set, um, managing your business, building your business. In the past, the key focus of these programs was creativity and design a table. And that's great. And that's fun. But that's not the kind of skill set you need to design or to build a professional event company in 2020. They're important, but without those key business skills and key understandings of how you're going to go to market and communicate with your audience, your creativity is going to go only for you. You're going to have to fail. What was the question?
To be honest, I've forgotten the question at this point. I was just paying attention to your response. So I'm happy to move on to the next one. And that is just, we have been talking a lot about this concept of a community and building a community. And I know a lot of the listeners to the podcast are very interested in building their own community. And this is something that you've played a key pivotal role in over the past few years. So, what are some of the lessons learned from building and fostering this community with the Canadian Special Events Group?
Sure.
Are there any tips and tricks you can share with the audience on how to successfully build and grow their own communities?
Pander. No, yes, absolutely. Know them intimately. Know their pain points. Know what gets them excited. And know what they're passionate about. Understand how to talk to them. What kind of a language to use. I think communication is critical when you're building a community. Communication and understanding of who that community is. What's important to them. What's valuable to them. What excites them. What moves them. What gets them out of bed in the morning. The only thing I can tell you, or the best advice I can tell you when you're trying to build a community, is find something that they can coalesce over. Whether it's a shared experience or a shared opportunity or a shared passion. And then learn how to speak to them. I had a long chat with somebody the other day who was very passionate about changing the education or the pathways into this industry. The problem with the way that he's communicating to people is he's telling them what's wrong with them before he tells them what's right. Well, if you start out by talking down to people or telling them they're wrong, stupid, foolish, well, it doesn't really matter how good your ideas are after that. They're just going to tune you out. And even if they do agree with you, it's going to be grudgingly. And the minute that you have, that you fail or something you say isn't correct, you're going to lose that. So if you're trying to build a community, get to know them, get to know the leaders, and understand how to talk to them and what kind of language. And I talked about it earlier. Find out what they're passionate about. Find out what excites them. Find out what gets them out of bed in the morning. If you learn all of those things, you'll be able to build a community. And then there's specific techniques like storytelling, and I mentioned pandering earlier. I wasn't kidding about that.
Yep.
But value. Find something to coalesce that community around. And then if you're going to try and drive revenues for it, then that's another.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're delivering that value. And what I've seen your team does very well is you've got that online community, you've got some LinkedIn pages, social media areas where people can connect. But you mentioned earlier on in the conversation the importance of bringing people together face to face for those personal face-to-face interactions to really solidify all of that online engagement that has been going on throughout the year. So I think that's a really critical component. And it doesn't have to be a massive conference for thousands of people. This could just be a networking night at a local bio pub. This could be a small gathering where you've got a quick presentation, possibly a workshop, and then open networking for the members of the community. So for those who are looking for recommendations or advice on how to build and facilitate a successful community, I would strongly recommend pay attention to Jason and his team. They're doing some incredible things. And Jason, I know you mentioned that you've got a lot on the roadmap for later this year. I don't think you can touch on many of these projects, but are there any sneak peeks you can give us? I know you mentioned professional development, master classes. That's something that you're paying attention to. Are there any other exciting projects that you're working on that you're able to share with the audience?
We are working on a couple of new shows, a couple of new niche shows within our industry.
Yeah.
So sorry, but we're excited about it. That's all I can say. Because if I tell you, we do have competitors, and so I wish I could tell you. In all honesty, literally the negotiations are going on as this conversation is happening. So maybe even as soon as next week, people. We're excited. We're excited.
Fantastic. I'm excited for you. I will pay attention to the social media channels because I'm sure when you get the green light, that'll be plastered everywhere. So we'll be sure to share that with the Where People Meet audience and the Feed Loop community. Jason, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It was fascinating to hear about how you started off in the events industry, joining the Canadian Special Events Media Group, how you and that team built that into a community, and then some of the key fundamentals that you have implemented around that community, around online engagement, delivering value, face-to-face events. So this has been a really exciting and engaging conversation. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Are there any final words? Are there any words of advice that you'd like to share with the listeners of the podcast?
Words of advice. Nothing. Words of advice for anything. Good thing we're editing. It sounds cheesy, but love what you do. You know, I mean, if you're doing this business and you don't love it, get out, because it'll eat you up. If you're just doing this for the money, go do something else. You know, because this isn't an industry for everybody. You know, again, during the pandemic, there's always conversations about mental health in our industry. I get it. I understand that. We deal with some really serious things. But this is not a 9 to 5 industry. And there's some days you're going to stay up for 48 hours because the event demands that. And if you're not okay with it, then you shouldn't be in this industry. If you're not passionate about it, if you're not understanding that that's what it's going to require sometimes. And there's lots of other great things as well. You're going to have, you're going to have days off you wouldn't get in a 9 to 5 job. Opportunities to see things, go places, travel in this business that you'd never get anywhere else. But you're going to have to work. You're going to have to work some longer. It's not a 9 to 5 thing. And sometimes you're going to look at that paycheck at the end of the day and go, wow, I only made $8 an hour on this thing. That's ridiculous. So if you're not passionate about it, if you're not excited about it, not enthusiastic about this, you're doing this for the money, go do something else. This isn't that kind
you can earn your money elsewhere, that's for sure, Jason. Absolutely. Hey, Feedloop is hiring. But no, that's a really good point, Jason. And I think that just spans beyond the industry itself, is just for any working professional, do what you love, find something that you're passionate about, find something that energizes you, because every job has its ups and downs. And especially the events industry, this is a very tough industry. It's very demanding. But for those who love it, you wouldn't even dream of working anywhere else. So Jason, again, thank you for your time. This was a really exciting conversation. I'm excited for the audience to sit down and listen to it. And what we'll do is we'll share some information on you, Canadian Special Events Group, because I know people who listen today are going to want to follow along with you and your journey, as well as the Canadian Special Events Group and building that incredible community that you've built. So in addition to pointing them to your website for the Canadian Special Events Group and your LinkedIn pages, is there anywhere else that we can point the audience?
Soon. We're going to be launching a whole new set of channels in about 6 weeks. So, yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So we'll share those over our channels when they're available. Everyone else, listeners, thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Where People Meet podcast with the one and only Jason Koop from CSE. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time on the Where People Meet podcast.
Thanks a lot, Mitch.